在第10课，我们的语法点是 A 离 B 远还是 A 离 B 近？离近远，还有我们的comparative sentences with 没有语法点。So like the kind of negation of A B B 的时候，我用 say A 没有 or A 不比 something something something。像 A 没有 B 远，或者 A 没有 B 近。Okay, so because again we're going to cover a couple important grammar structures, this is going to be a longer video. Please watch until the end, or skip around to as is helpful. So 我们的第一个语法点是 A 离 B 远或者近。Okay, so 离 it's a verb. It means kind of away from. So literally like A away from B is like how far away. You can translate it that way. So either A away from B is near 近 or it's far 远. So these are both adjectives. It's like A 离 B 远 or A 离 B 近. For example, I can say 电脑中心 A 离 away from 图书馆 B 很近. Right? So the two locations are very close. Or if the opposite, if I say 很远电脑中心离图书馆很远 that would be is very far from the library. Right? And those are the two ways that we talk about near and far relative locations. Now, what if I want to say A is not as far as B, right? Compared to a third place? Well, then I would use a negation of this structure using A 没有 B or A 不比 B. These structures are closely connected to one we learned in level 11, A, B, B adjective. All right, so let's look at some examples of this structure. If you want to negate a B structure, so you're saying A is for, like, if you want to say A is more than B, to say A is not as B, you want to say A 没有 B, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we can't use 不. We want to say 没有. And that's kind of that's the structure that's used. So if I want to say, for example, Beijing is not as hot as Shanghai, I would say 北京没有上海热. I don't like to use the credit card as much as she does. 我没有她那么喜欢刷卡. I can also say, this is not something that we'll focus on because it's not quite as common in Chinese, right? A, 没有 B is a very common structure everywhere in Chinese. You can say 不比. 不比 is it's a little bit of a more direct negation of the B structure, right? I say I have B and then I put a 不比 in front of it. Well, that literally means A is not more adjective than B. So they could be the same. Like if I'm saying 北京不比上海热, that would mean that Beijing is not hotter than Shanghai, but they could, for example, be the exact same temperature. If I want to say 没有, that's more of like saying it's not as. Like, so then B would definitely be hotter, more than A. Beijing 没有上海热. In this case, Shanghai is definitely hotter than B. They're not the same temperature. But with 不比, they could potentially be the same temperature. They don't have to be, but it could potentially be implied by that grammatical structure. Okay, let's look at some more examples with 没有. 我弟弟没有我高. Okay, the older brother is definitely taller than the younger brother. 我弟弟没有我高. But what if I say 我弟弟不比我高? Well, then definitely the brother's not taller, but they could be the same tallness. So with this structure, the A, B, B, 大, for example, A is definitely bigger than B. A 没有 B 大, A is definitely smaller than B. A 不比 B 大. A could be smaller or equal to B. You can think of that in that kind of math relationship. Now, you can also say use 没有 with 那么. 那么 doesn't change the structure. 那么, as we remember, it's an adverb indicating degree, so you place it in front of adjectives to denote a high degree. So I can say, 那么帅, right? 哥哥那么帅,那么酷. Well, I can also place this in front of an adjective in the 没有 structure. So A 没有 B 那么 blah 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 blah. You use the 那么 to emphasize that whatever B is, it's very of that adjective. Or you can translate it as not nearly as blah 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 as B. Let's look at an example. 电脑中心没有运动场那么远. So the 那么 here you could remove the 那么, and the meaning would be essentially the same. 电脑中心没有运动场远. If you add the 那么, you're emphasizing that it's really not as far, right? So in this case, you're implying that the 运动场 is very close, right? Sorry, you're implying the 运动场 is very far away. The 电脑中心 is much closer, and that's why you're having the 那么. Or I can say something like 弟弟没有哥哥那么帅,那么cool. So who's super cool? The 哥哥, right? And then who's really not cool? The 弟弟. And that's what the 那么 means. You're just heightening the comparison. Okay, it doesn't reach the same standards. Definitely, whoever B is, it's definitely handsome or cool. You're affirming a certain attribute of somebody or someone in question. Okay, another example. 那个饭馆, excuse me, 那个饭馆没有这个饭馆那么近. Okay, so what's closer, right? So the idea with the 没有 A, 没有 B 远 or 近 structure, you're comparing actually three locations. You're comparing whoever the position of the speaker is, and then you're comparing, or whatever the speaker is talking about, and you're comparing it to two other locations. You're saying, well, compared to, for example, where I am at right now, this restaurant is not as close as this restaurant. It's all relative, right? It just depends on where you're standing. So, 那个饭馆, that restaurant is not as close, is definitely not as close, it's not nearly as close as 这个饭馆, this restaurant. And it all depends on your relative location compared to those two restaurants. Okay, let's look at a picture example. Okay, so I'm standing right here in this picture. But in this picture, I'm standing right here. So what's the relative distances? Okay, so I can say A 比 B 近 or 远, or I can say A 没有 B 那么近 or 那么远. So if I am standing here, let's say I'm right here. Let's say I am right here. I'm standing right in the center between these two pictures. Okay, so the boy in this picture is obviously further away from me, and the boy in this picture is closer. So I can say two different things depending on which structure I want to use. Okay, I can say A 比 B 近远 right? Boy A 这个男孩子比这个男孩子近。Sorry, excuse me. Well, let's look at some pictures to help us kind of visualize these structures, right? Because they're very much depending on relative location. So let's look at these two pictures here. We have this guy here, A. Okay, we'll call him A, or 这个男孩子, and then over here, and then we have B, or 这个男孩子, over here. So depending on where I'm at, I would use different structures. So let's say I'm right here. Let's say I, the speaker, am right. I'm standing right here, right between these two people. Now, obviously, boy A is farther away from me, right? And boy B is very close, right? So what can I say with these two structures? I can say A, B, B, 远, right? A is further away than B. That's absolutely true, right? So 这个男孩子比那个男孩子远。Now, what if I want to say this guy is not as far away as this guy? Then I would say, or 这个男孩子没有那个男孩子那么远。So this boy is not as far away as that boy, which is true because I'm standing right here. What if I want to say this guy is not as, well, I want to say A is not as close as B? Then I would say 这个男孩子没有那个男孩子那么近, implying that this guy is closer to me and this guy is further away. Now, what if I was standing somewhere? What if I was standing here? Let's say I was standing right here. That means I'm closer to boy A versus boy B. So then I would say, boy A 比 boy B 近 because he's closer. Or if I want to say he's further away, I can say boy B 比 boy A 远 further away. What if I want to say he's not as far away? I can say boy A 没有 boy B 远, right? So meaning boy B is further away. Or I can say boy B 没有 boy A 近, meaning boy A is not as close as boy B, because as boy B is not as close as boy A, which is true because I'm standing right next to boy A. All right, so though that is our grammar for today. Thanks for listening to this long video. 谢谢大家。